The empire stretched across 40 star systems. Their ships were fast. Their weapons were powerful. Their soldiers stood 8 feet tall with silver skin and 4 arms. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had never lost a war. Earth was different. The war between humans and the lasted 3 years. The aliens expected an easy victory. They were wrong. Humans fought with a fury they had never seen. They did not surrender. They did not run. Even when their cities burned, they kept fighting. They won battles, but they could not win the war. Every victory cost them too much. Human soldiers would charge into certain death just to destroy one enemy ship. Human pilots would crash their planes into command centers. The aliens did not understand this madness. Finally, the Emperor called for peace. "These humans are broken in their minds," he told his council. "They do not fear death. We cannot defeat an enemy that welcomes destruction. We must find another way." The solution was an old one, a political marriage. The Emperor's youngest daughter, Princess Lyra, would marry a human. This union would seal the peace treaty between their peoples. Lyra stood in her father's throne room when she heard the news. She was tall and beautiful by standards. Her silver skin glowed softly. Her 4 arms were graceful and strong. Her purple eyes showed no emotion as her father spoke. "You will go to Earth," the Emperor said. "You will choose a human male. You will marry him and bring him back to our world. This marriage will show the galaxy that we are at peace." "Yes, father," Lyra said. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt sick. Marry a human. Those small, weak creatures with only 2 arms, they were primitive, they were ugly, they smelled strange. The thought of touching one made her want to scream. But she was a princess. She had a duty. Lyra traveled to Earth with a small group of advisors. The human leaders welcomed her with respect and fear. They showed her their cities, their technology, their culture. She found it all very boring. "Show me your warriors," she finally said. "If I must marry a human, I want to see the men who fought against us." The humans took her to a military base. She walked past rows of soldiers. They all looked the same to her, small, soft, weak. Their muscles were tiny compared to warriors. Their skin was an ugly pink or brown color. They had only 2 arms, which seemed ridiculous. Then she saw him. He stood apart from the others. He was not the tallest human, but something about him was different. He stood perfectly still, like a statue. His eyes were dark and calm. He did not look at her with fear like the others. He did not look at her with desire or curiosity. He simply watched her the way a hunter watches prey. "Who is that one?" Lyra asked. "His name is," her advisor said. "He is a guard at the human embassy. Nothing special." Nothing special. Lyra studied the human called. He wore a simple uniform. His face showed no expression. His body was lean but not impressive. By all measures, he was ordinary. But his eyes. There was something in his eyes that Lyra could not understand. Something deep and still, like water in a dark well. "I choose him," she said. Her advisors were confused. "Princess, there are stronger humans. There are humans with more status. This one is just a guard." "I choose him," Lyra repeated. "He is quiet. He will not bother me. He will be easy to ignore." The human leaders were surprised too. They offered her generals and scientists and wealthy businessmen, but Lyra wanted the quiet guard. Finally, they agreed. Accepted the arrangement without question. He signed the documents. He packed his small bag. He did not say goodbye to anyone. It was like he had been waiting for this moment. The wedding was a simple ceremony. Lyra wore traditional robes of gold and silver, wore a black suit. He stood silently through the whole event. When it was time to speak his vows, his voice was soft and steady. "I will protect you," he said. "I will honor this bond. I will bring no shame to your house." Lyra almost laughed. Protect her. This small human, she was a warrior princess. She could crush him with one hand, but she said nothing. She just wanted this embarrassing ceremony to end. After the wedding, they boarded a ship and left Earth behind, sat by a window and watched his planet grow smaller. His face showed nothing, but Lyra wondered what he was thinking. Was he sad to leave his home? Was he afraid of what waited for him? She did not ask, she did not care. The journey to the took 2 weeks. During that time, Lyra avoided her new husband as much as possible. They had separate rooms. They ate at different times. When they did see each other, simply bowed his head in respect and said nothing. "He is like a ghost," Lyra told her servant. "He makes no sound, he takes up no space. It is like being married to a shadow." "Perhaps that is good, princess," her servant said. "A quiet husband is better than a loud one." Lyra supposed that was true. At least did not try to touch her or talk to her or pretend they were a real couple. He understood his place. He was a symbol, nothing more. A living treaty written in flesh and blood. When they arrived at the crowds gathered to see the human. They pointed and laughed at as he walked behind Lyra. Children threw small stones at him. Adults made jokes about his size and his strange appearance. Did not react. He walked with his eyes forward, his back straight, his face empty. The stones hit him and fell away. The insults washed over him like water. Lyra felt a tiny bit of respect for him then. He had dignity at least. He did not cry or complain or show weakness. He simply endured. But respect was not love, and it was not trust. Was still a human, and humans, Lyra believed, were nothing but clever animals pretending to be civilized. Her marriage to him was a punishment, not a partnership. She would do her duty, she would keep him alive, but she would never see him as an equal. That was her first mistake. Life in the palace was cold and lonely for her. He had a small room in the far corner of the royal building. It had a bed, a chair, and a window that looked out at the purple sky. Nothing else. The servants ignored him. The guards mocked him. The nobles treated him like a pet that had wandered into the wrong room. To them, he was not a person. He was a curiosity, a joke. Every morning woke at dawn. He washed his face with cold water. He dressed in the simple gray clothes they had given him. Then he walked through the palace, looking for something to do. There was nothing. He was not allowed to attend meetings. He was not invited to meals with the royal family. He had no job, no purpose, no friends. He was married to a princess, but he lived like a prisoner. Lyra saw him sometimes in the hallways. She would walk past him without a word. Her 4 arms swung gracefully at her sides. Her purple eyes looked through him like he was made of glass. To her, he did not exist. Did not mind. He was used to being invisible. The other were not so quiet. They loved to remind that he was inferior. A group of young nobles made it their hobby to follow him around and insult him. "Look at the little human," one would say. "He only has 2 arms. How does he even hold a weapon?" "He probably cannot," another would laugh. "Humans are too weak to fight. That is why they married one of their females to us. They surrendered their dignity." Never responded. He just kept walking, his eyes forward, his face calm. This made the nobles angry. They wanted him to react. They wanted to see him cry or fight back so they could hurt him. One day, a noble named decided to test the human. Was the son of a powerful general. He was young and cruel and bored. He blocked his path in a narrow hallway. "Human," said, "I heard your kind cannot even survive in our atmosphere without help. Is it true that you are so fragile?" Looked up at the 8-foot alien. "Yes," he said simply, "humans are fragile." Laughed. "Then why did your people fight us? Why did you not simply surrender and save yourselves the pain?" Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because fragile things can still be dangerous." The words hung in the air. Smile faded. For just a second, something cold passed through his eyes, something that made step back without knowing why. Then the moment was gone. Bowed his head and walked around the noble, continuing down the hallway like nothing had happened. Stood there for a long time, his 4 hearts beating fast. He told himself he was not afraid, but he never bothered again. The weeks became months, developed a routine. He spent his mornings exploring the palace. He learned every hallway, every door, every hidden passage. He knew where the guards stood and when they changed shifts. He knew which rooms were locked and which were empty. In the afternoons, he watched the warriors train. He sat in a corner of the training yard, invisible and forgotten, while soldiers practiced combat with their forearms. He studied their movements. He learned their techniques. He memorized their weaknesses. At night, when the palace was quiet, trained alone. He found an abandoned storage room deep in the palace basement. It was dark and dusty, and no one ever went there. Turned it into his personal gym. He exercised for hours every night. Push-ups, sit-ups, stretches, combat drills. His body was his only weapon, and he kept it sharp. He also practiced with a small knife he had hidden in his room. They had taken all his weapons when he arrived, but they did not search him very carefully. They did not think a human could be dangerous. That was their mistake. Trained until his muscles burned and his lungs screamed for air. Then he trained some more. He never complained. He never stopped. Pain was just information. Exhaustion was just a state of mind. He had learned this long ago in places they could not imagine. Sometimes, Lyra noticed things about her human husband that confused her. One morning, she saw him walking across the courtyard. A heavy stone block had fallen from a construction project. Without thinking, she shouted a warning, but did not move. He stood perfectly still as the stone crashed just inches from his feet. "Why did you not run?" Lyra demanded. "You could have been killed." Looked at her. "I knew where it would land," he said. "There was no need to move." How could he possibly know that? Lyra wondered, but she did not ask. She told herself she did not care. Another time, a servant reported something strange. She had been cleaning Nir's room late at night when she heard sounds. Rhythmic sounds, like someone hitting something over and over. "I think the human was crying," the servant said, hitting his pillow in frustration. Lyra nodded. "Poor creature, he must be homesick." But that was not what the sounds were, not at all. The truth was that Earth had not sent their weakest man to marry Princess Lyra. They had sent their best, was not a simple embassy guard. He was a member of the most elite Special Forces unit on Earth. He had been trained since childhood to be the perfect soldier. He could kill with his hands, with a knife, with anything within reach. He could survive in any environment. He could endure any pain. The war with the had taught Earth an important lesson. They could not match the aliens in technology or numbers, but they could send someone to watch, to wait, to protect humanity's interests from inside the enemy's home. Was that someone? His mission was simple: stay close to the royal family, learn everything he could about and if anyone tried to restart the war, stop them by any means necessary. He had no contact with Earth. He had no backup. He was completely alone in enemy territory, but that was fine, worked best alone. So he watched, he waited, he trained in the shadows, and he let everyone believe he was nothing but a weak, pathetic human who did not belong. Princess Lyra walked past him every day without a second glance. The nobles laughed at him and called him names. The servants him and whispered about his sad life. None of them knew the truth. None of them saw the wolf hiding inside the sheep. But one day they would. One day would show them exactly what a human was capable of, and on that day everything would change. Until then, he was patient. He was invisible. He was the quiet husband who made no sound and took up no space. He was exactly where he needed to be. The imperial banquet was the biggest event of the year. Every noble family in the empire sent representatives. Thousands of guests filled the great hall of the palace. They wore expensive robes and jewels that sparkled under the crystal lights. Princess Lyra stood near her father's throne, greeting guests and accepting their compliments. She looked beautiful in her golden dress. Her silver skin glowed with health. Her forearms moved gracefully as she spoke. Behind her, almost invisible in the shadows, stood. The palace guards had not wanted to let him attend. A human at the imperial banquet. It was embarrassing. But Lyra had insisted, not because she wanted him there. She simply did not want the shame of leaving her husband locked in his room like a prisoner. "Stay quiet," she had told him. "Stay invisible, do not speak to anyone." Had nodded. He wore a simple black suit that made him look like a servant. No one paid attention to him. He was just part of the background. But was watching everything. His eyes moved constantly, scanning the crowd. He noted the position of every guard. He counted the exits. He watched how people moved, how they grouped together, who was nervous and who was calm. Something felt wrong. He could not explain it. There was nothing obvious, but after years of training, had learned to trust his instincts, and his instincts were screaming that danger was close. He moved a little closer to Lyra. She did not notice. The banquet continued. Food was served. Music played. Nobles danced and laughed and drank expensive wine. The emperor gave a speech about peace and prosperity. Everyone clapped politely. Then the lights went out. For 3 seconds the great hall was completely dark. People gasped in surprise. Guards shouted orders. Then the emergency lights came on, casting everything in a dim red glow. That was when the attackers struck. They came from everywhere at once. The servants carrying food trays threw off their disguises and pulled out weapons. Hidden doors burst open as more fighters poured into the hall. They wore black masks and moved with military precision. Rebels who opposed the peace treaty, who hated the idea of their princess being married to a human, who wanted to kill the royal family and restart the war. The palace guards fought back, but they were outnumbered and surprised. Bodies fell. Blood splashed across the marble floor. Screams filled the air. Lyra grabbed her father and pushed him toward the throne room. "Go," she shouted. "Get to the safe room." The emperor's personal guards surrounded him and rushed him away. But more rebels blocked Lyra's path. 5 of them, armed with plasma rifles and vibration blades. "The princess," their leader said. "Kill her, kill the human too. Let their deaths be a message." Lyra dropped into a fighting stance. She was a trained warrior. She would not die without a fight. But 5 against 1, all of them armed. The odds were bad. Then something strange happened. Stepped forward. The rebels laughed. The small human in his simple black suit standing in front of armed warriors. It was absurd, pathetic, funny. "Move aside, little creature," the leader said. "This does not concern you. We might even let you live if you step away from the princess." Did not move. He did not speak. He just stood there, his body relaxed, his eyes calm. The leader stopped laughing. Something about the human stillness was unsettling. The way he stood, the way he breathed. It was not the posture of a scared man. It was the posture of someone waiting. "Kill him," the leader ordered. 2 rebels rushed forward with their blades raised. They were fast. Warriors were always fast. Their forearms gave them twice the attack options of any other species. Was faster. He moved like water, like wind, like something that was not quite human. One moment he was standing still. The next moment both rebels were on the ground. Their own blades were buried in their chests. No one saw how it happened. It was too quick, too smooth, like a magic trick. The other rebels froze. Lyra stared with her mouth open. Picked up one of the fallen plasma rifles. He checked it in less than a second, his hands moving with practiced ease. Then he looked at the remaining 3 rebels. "Leave," he said. His voice was quiet, polite, almost gentle. They did not leave, they attacked. What happened next would become legend in the Empire. Did not just fight the 3 rebels. He destroyed them. He moved through them like a storm through dry leaves. His hands and feet struck with impossible precision. Every hit landed exactly where it needed to. Every movement was perfect, without a single wasted motion. One rebel swung all four arms at once, ducked under the attack, broke the rebel's knee with a kick, and used his falling body as a shield against a plasma blast from another attacker. Before the third rebel could react, had crossed the distance between them and struck him in the throat. 6 seconds, 3 enemies down. But more were coming. The rebels had seen what happened. They were sending everyone they could to kill the human who had become a sudden threat. 12 armed warriors surrounded and Lyra. 12 veterans with plasma rifles and blades, enough firepower to destroy a tank. Did not hesitate. He grabbed Lyra and pushed her behind a stone pillar. "Stay down," he said. Then he walked toward the 12 rebels like he was taking a casual stroll. The rebels opened fire. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, hot enough to melt steel, dodged them, not with big dramatic jumps but with small efficient movements. He shifted left. He leaned right. He twisted his body at angles that should have been impossible. Then he was among them. It was not a fight, it was a massacre. Moved from one enemy to the next, never stopping, never slowing. He used their own weapons against them. He turned their numbers into a disadvantage. They could not shoot him without risking their allies. They could not surround him because he was always moving. Arms broke, knees shattered, bodies fell. The rebels who tried to run were caught. The rebels who tried to surrender were ignored, was not there to capture anyone. He was there to end a threat. 90 seconds later, all 12 rebels were down. Stood in the middle of the destruction, breathing steadily. There was blood on his suit, but none of it was his. A plasma bolt had grazed his shoulder, burning through the fabric, but he did not seem to notice. Around him, the battle was ending. The palace guards had and were pushing back the remaining rebels. The assassination attempt had failed. Lyra stepped out from behind the pillar. She looked at the bodies. She looked at. Her mind could not process what she had seen. "How?" she whispered. "How did you do that?" Turned to face her. For the first time since she had known him, she saw something in his eyes. Not anger, not pride, just a quiet sadness. "I am sorry you had to see this, princess," he said. "I would have preferred to remain invisible." Then he walked past her, heading toward the throne room to make sure the emperor was safe. He moved without urgency, without fear, like this had been just another day. Lyra watched him go. Her 4 hearts were pounding, her hands were shaking. She had married what she thought was a sheep. She had just discovered she was living with a wolf. The palace was in chaos after the attack. Guards ran through the hallways. Servants cried and held each other. Nobles demanded answers and protection. The emperor locked himself in the throne room with his most trusted advisors. But everyone was talking about one thing. The human. "He killed 15 warriors by himself," one guard whispered to another. "I saw it with my own eyes. He moved like nothing I have ever seen." "Impossible," his partner said. "Humans are weak. Everyone knows this." "Then explain the bodies. Explain how a creature with only 2 arms defeated our best fighters." No one could explain it. The story spread through the palace like fire. By morning, the entire capital city had heard. By evening, the news had reached every corner of the empire. The human husband of Princess Lyra had single-handedly stopped an assassination attempt. He had killed trained rebel warriors with his bare hands. He had moved faster than eyes could follow. It was impossible, it was terrifying, and it was true. The emperor summoned to the throne room. Lyra stood beside her father, watching as her husband was brought in, walked calmly between 2 armed guards. His shoulder had been bandaged where the plasma bolt had burned him, but he showed no pain. His face was as empty as always. The emperor studied the human for a long moment. He was an old, his silver skin faded to gray, but his eyes were still sharp, still dangerous. "Human," the emperor said, "last night you saved my daughter's life, perhaps my life as well. The Empire owes you a debt. Bowed his head. I was only doing my duty, Your Majesty. Your duty, the Emperor leaned forward. That is what I wish to discuss. Tell me, what exactly is your duty? Who are you truly? The room went silent. Every noble, every guard, every servant held their breath. Looked up and met the Emperor's eyes. I am a guard from the human embassy. Your daughter chose me for marriage. No, the Emperor shook his head. I watched the recordings of last night. I have commanded armies for 200 years. I know warriors when I see them. You are not a simple guard. You are something much more dangerous, so I will ask again. Who are you? For a moment said nothing. Then slowly he nodded. Very well, Your Majesty. You deserve the truth. He straightened his back. His posture changed. Suddenly he no longer looked like a small, harmless human. He looked like exactly what he was. A predator. My name is, before the peace treaty, I served in an elite unit of the Earth military. We were called the Shadow Corps. Our purpose was to go where other soldiers could not, to do what other soldiers could not. I spent 15 years training and fighting. I have been to places that would drive most beings mad. I have done things that would make your hardest warriors weep. He paused, letting the words sink in. When the peace treaty was signed, Earth's leaders made a decision. They would send someone to watch over the alliance, someone who could protect human interests from the inside, someone who could stop any threat before it became a war. They chose me. Gasps filled the throne room. Lyra felt her legs go weak. You were sent to spy on us, the Emperor demanded. This marriage was a trick. No, Your Majesty, the marriage was real. The peace is real. I was sent to protect it, not to destroy it. His voice remained calm. The rebels who attacked last night wanted to kill your family and restart the war. They wanted to blame humans for the attack and turn your people against Earth. If they had succeeded, millions would have died. And you stopped them, Lyra said softly. You protected the peace. Yes, Princess, that is my mission. That has always been my mission. The Emperor sat back in his throne. His 4 hands gripped the armrests tight enough to crack the stone. Earth sent their best warrior disguised as their weakest offering, he said slowly. They made us think we were receiving a pet. Instead, they planted a weapon in my palace. A guardian, corrected. Not a weapon. I have no orders to harm anyone. I have no secret plans against the Empire. I am here only to make sure the peace survives. How can I believe you? How can I trust anything you say? Was silent for a moment. Then he reached into his sleeve and pulled out a small knife. The guards rushed forward, weapons raised, but simply placed the knife on the ground and stepped back. That knife has been with me since I arrived, he said. I could have killed anyone in this palace at any time, the guards, the nobles, the princess, even you, Your Majesty, but I did not, because killing is not my purpose, protecting is. He looked at each person in the room. I understand your fear, I understand your anger, you feel betrayed, you feel foolish, but think about what happened last night. Rebels attacked your home, they nearly killed your daughter, and I stopped them. Not because I was ordered to, but because it was the right thing to do. Perhaps, the Emperor's voice was cold, or perhaps this was all part of your plan. Let us be attacked, save us at the last moment, make us trust you. If that was my plan, it would be a very stupid one. I could have been killed, the princess could have been killed, too many things could have gone wrong, shook his head. The truth is simpler. I saw people in danger, I saved them. That is what warriors do. The throne room was quiet. No one knew what to say. Everything they thought they knew about humans had been turned upside down. The weak, primitive species they had mocked and was suddenly something else entirely. Lyra stepped forward. Father, may I speak? The Emperor nodded. This human saved my life. He could have run away, he could have let me die, but he fought 12 armed warriors with nothing but his hands. He was injured protecting me. She took a deep breath. I do not know if we can trust him completely, but I know he is not our enemy. Our enemies were the rebels who tried to kill us. Stop them." She turned to face her husband. For the first time, she really looked at him, not as a pathetic creature she was forced to marry, not as a symbol of peace, but as a person. "Thank you," she said, "for saving my life." Bowed his head. "It was my honor, princess." The emperor watched this exchange with careful eyes. Finally, he spoke. "The truth about your identity will remain secret. As far as the empire knows, you are simply a guard who happened to have some fighting skills. We cannot let our people think we were fooled by humans." "I understand, Your Majesty. But know this, human. I will be watching you. My guards will be watching you. If you ever give me reason to doubt your loyalty, I will have you killed in ways your species cannot imagine." Nodded. "That is fair." "Good, then we are finished here. Return to your rooms and—" "Yes, Your Majesty." The Emperor's expression softened just slightly. "Well fought. Whatever else you are a warrior worthy of respect." Bowed deeply and left the throne room. As he walked down the long hallway, he passed nobles who had laughed at him yesterday. Today, they stepped aside and avoided his eyes. The sheep costume had been torn away. Now they saw what was underneath. The empire was not the same after the night of the attack. Something had changed, something deep and important that could never be undone. Fear. For the first time in their long history, they were afraid of humans. The story of spread across the galaxy. Different versions were told on different worlds, but they all agreed on the basic facts. A single human had defeated 15 armed warriors. He had moved faster than their eyes could see. He had fought with a skill that made their best soldiers look like children. And this was just one human, a guard, nobody special. If Earth had warriors like this, what else did they have? What other secrets were they hiding? They had always thought of humans as weak and primitive. Now they wondered if they had been looking at the wrong things. Humans were fragile, yes. Their bodies broke easily. Their lives were short. But they were also something they had never considered. They were survivors. For millions of years, humans had lived on a death world, a planet where everything tried to kill them. Earthquakes, volcanoes, ice ages, predators, diseases, other humans. They had faced extinction again and again, and every time they had clawed their way back. They did not just survive, they adapted, they improved, they became stronger. They had never needed to struggle like that. Their world was calm. Their evolution was peaceful. They had 4 arms and strong bodies, but they had never faced true hardship. Now they understood why the war against Earth had been so costly. Humans did not fear death because they had lived with death every day of their existence. They were not weak. They were forged in fire. In the palace, things were different too. Was no longer invisible. Guards nodded to him in the hallways. Servants treated him with respect. Nobles who had mocked him before now avoided his eyes and spoke to him politely. He did not enjoy the attention. He would have preferred to stay hidden, but that choice was gone now. Lyra came to his room one evening. It was the first time she had visited since their wedding. Was sitting by the window, watching the purple sunset. He stood when she entered and bowed his head. "Princess, how can I help you?" Lyra studied him. He looked the same as always, quiet, calm, ordinary, but now she knew what lay beneath that surface. "I came to talk," she said, "to understand." Gestured to the only chair in his small room. Lyra hesitated, then sat down, remained standing. "Ask your questions," he said. "Why did you let us treat you so badly? The insults, the stones, the mockery, you could have stopped it at any time." "Could I?" Shook his head. "If I had shown my abilities, I would have been executed as a threat, or locked away somewhere dark. My mission was to stay close to power without being noticed. Pain and embarrassment were small prices to pay. But it must have hurt, being hated for something you are not." Looked at her for a long moment. "I have felt worse pain, princess, much worse." There was something in his voice that made Lyra's heart ache. She realized that she knew nothing about this man, nothing about his past, nothing about what he had suffered before coming here. "Tell me about Earth," she said. "Tell me about your life before." So told her. He spoke about growing up in a small village near the mountains, about his parents who died when he was young, about being selected for military training at age 10, about the brutal years of preparation that turned children into weapons. He told her about missions in places with no names, about friends who died in his arms, about nights when he wondered if he was still human or had become something else entirely. He told her about the war, about fighting soldiers who were bigger and stronger, about watching cities burn, about the desperate hope that peace might actually be possible. And he told her about the day he was chosen for this mission, to marry an alien princess, to live among enemies, to wait and watch and hope that the killing was finally over. When he finished, the sun had set and the room was dark. Lyra had tears in her eyes. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I did not know." "How could you? I was designed to be invisible, to be nothing." Lyra stood up. She walked to and did something she never thought she would do. She reached out with one of her hands and touched his face. His skin was warm, soft, human. "You are not nothing," she said. "You are the most remarkable being I have ever met." Looked at her with surprise. For the first time since she had known him, she saw emotion in his eyes, confusion, hope, fear. "Princess, I am just a soldier, a tool I do not deserve." "Stop," Lyra's voice was firm. "You saved my life. You have suffered alone for months without complaint. You gave up everything for a peace that most of your people will never appreciate. That is not a tool. That is a hero." She stepped back and looked at him. "I know our marriage was political. I know you did not choose this. Neither did I, but perhaps we can choose something now. Perhaps we can try to be more than symbols." Was silent for a long time. Then slowly he nodded. "I would like that, princess." "Lyra," she said. "Call me Lyra." In the months that followed, things changed between them. They ate meals together. They walked in the gardens together. They talked for hours about their worlds, their dreams, their fears. The galaxy watched with amazement. The marriage that was meant to be a joke had become something real. The princess and the human soldier were falling in love. More importantly, the peace held. The rebels who survived the attack were captured and punished. Their movement collapsed. Other groups who had planned similar actions saw what had happened and quietly abandoned their plots. The message was clear. Humans were not prey, they were not weak, and anyone who threatened the peace would face consequences. Earth sent a message through secret channels. His mission was considered a success. He could come home if he wanted. He could retire with honor and live a quiet life. Read the message and thought about it for a long time. Then he wrote his reply. "My home is here now. My duty is not finished. I will stay." Lyra found him that night on the palace roof, looking up at the stars. Earth was out there somewhere, a small blue dot in a vast ocean of darkness. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "Sometimes," admitted, "but I have found something here that I never had there." "What is that?" He turned to look at her. His eyes, which had been so empty for so long, were finally warm. "Peace," he said, "real peace inside myself." Lyra took his hand in two of hers. They stood together under the alien stars, two different species united by something stronger than politics or fear. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also capable of great love, great sacrifice, great kindness. They were not monsters hiding in sheep's clothing. They were simply human. And that was enough.